is, I'm not promoting anything about Korean thing. Pero we know in the Philippine culture, marami na talaga influence ng Korea dito, Korean influences dito sa atin, di ba? So, I guess it's kind of an advantage in a way kasi some of you might have yung yung background knowledge or something that you've watched before, like a series with yung mga historical ako hindi ko naman dinedeny. I've watched a historical Korean drama na talagang makita mo yung culture nila, yung history with the Chinese influence, yung grandeur nung nila, nung mga costumes and all the stuff na ginagamit nila. And how they in the film, how they do yung films nila. And actually, I'm not promoting again, pero kaya parang there's an announcement sa UP na meron daw class about Korean drama. In general, film, not just yung drama. Pero that's because talagang around the world, Korea already evolved into a country na talagang, especially South Korea. We know dahil may issue ang North and South, di ba? So, just a brief history, and Miss Sarah will help me out with screen sharing because para mas mabilis yung natin, technical transition dahil ang laptop natin ay hindi ganun ka-strong dito. But I will go on habang sinishare niya. So we know that Korea has a very rich culture, and as you will see later on, there's a screen sharing. Yan, there's a map, 'di ba? Meron dyan. You will see the division between the North Korea and then South Korea. I guess some of you have yung knowledge about how it came about, kung paano sila na-divide, di ba? So, pero before, Korea was a united country. Pero marami silang pinagdaanan with all the Chinese invasion.
Nawala ba si Miss Reg? Baka namatay yung phone niya or laptop. I think medyo matatagalan ng, ayan na siya. I think, ayun.
Hello. Narinig yun ako ulit. Ayan. So, the laptop is struggling to cope up. So, yeah, nag-switch na lang ako sa phone. Mas mabilis siguro yan. Okay, so we go back to the map. Can you see the map of East Asia dyan? Okay. So, tapos bigla namang nadoble to isa. But I will just close it. Okay, so sandwich, yung Korea is sandwich between um, Japan and China. So, that's why there's no doubt China, yung history ng China with all the invasions na ginawa nila. China and then Japanese. Pero nauna yung China with the history of invasion. Next slide po. Ayan. So makikita nyo dyan sa pinaka, nakikita nyo yung malaking part ng China, di ba? And Korea is kind of sobrang parang, kung i-compare mo siya, sobrang liit lang niya. And then Japan. Okay. Ayan. Clear naman, clear. Okay, okay naman siya, Miss Sarah. So, before we go to the music culture, we'll just run through the timeline, short background lang ng history ng Korea. And of course, we'll focus more on the music culture. We'll talk about court ritual music ng Korea. And then that's the reading that I gave you sa Google Classroom. I hope nagkaroon kayo ng idea how this court ritual music came sa Korea. And think about it if it's really authentic Korean music or an authentic Chinese thing na napasa lang. So, I will give you some of that guide questions para sa inyong reflections. Pero, according to what you read dun sa reading, is it authentic Korean music or not? So, yan yung act. And then we go to some of the folk music. We'll run through it, pero kasi marami talagang folk music o folk song ang Korea. Yung Sarah na record na to, no? Okay. So, and then traditional instruments, and then yung listening. Hopefully, sa listening part, ma-play ko sa inyo lahat some of the instruments. Pero, if not, again, you can enjoy the playlist kasi part yun ng listening nyo. Because yung time natin is short lang. So, we go to the timeline. Next slide. Ayan. So, it goes back to that yung what we call this, yung history, di ba, nauna with the lecture of Sir Bakrik, you know how China started sobrang tagal, yung BCCE and all this, yung dates very 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 far doon sa start talaga ng Korea. And then yung merong three kingdoms, you know, yung sa dynasties, may Joseon, merong Goguryeo, all these three kingdoms, and then merong it will push through dun sa dynasty, division of Korea, and then Korean War. So doon na nag-start talaga yung parang birth ng Korea as a country, which sadly it's a divided one. So Korean division, and then Korean War for 3 years, millions of Korean died because of that. Pero it ended up still divided. So kasi yung North Korea went with the Soviet Union, yung Russia, and then South Korea, tinulungan sila ng US. So naging democratic sila. And yung North Korea, it ended up being a communist country. So with that history, it affected din yung music culture nila kasi with the North Korean government, yung music culture nila or yung music nila was mainly affected with the ideology na meron ng North Korea. So hindi na reserve or hindi na preserve yung mga music, yung mga traditional uh, pieces. And then if meron mang na preserve, merong silang ginawa, binago nila according to the government's kasi ang si Kim Jong Un yung talagang nagsasabi ko ano lang yung dapat i-accept, ipakita sa public. So yun yung yun yung naging challenge. With South Korea, it happened na mas they tried to still preserve and yung mga ethnomusicologists, Korean ethnomusicologists tried to research the origin kung saan pinanggalingan ng music ng Korea, and then was able to retrieve some of it. So next slide. Okay. So again, we know that mainly Korea was influenced by Chinese culture. That's why if you notice, yung kanilang written system is close to Chinese characters. Even when we go to Japan, yung sila yung tatlo, China, Korea, and then Japan, yung magkakamukha sila ng writing system because uh, of the influence of China. Pero the present language now is Hangul, which is very different talaga. Invented talaga siya. I forgot the dynasty who did it, pero it's in the history we don't ayoko na kasi mag-focus sa history because marami tayong pag-uusapan sa music culture. But I will just give you yung supplement din sa reading. So they made their own written language or yung characters, and then the present language now is the Hangul. But the ideology, katulad nung lecture last week ni Sir B about Confucianism, diba? Yun yung naging national ideology nitong Korea. And mainly influence, syempre, ang government at lahat. But the religion is Buddhism and other, marami na rin pumasok, pero yung mainly din na naging religion nila is Buddhism and indigenous belief. At present, I think there's some marami na rin Protestant, in general, Christians. And we know merong Bob Jones Institute sa Korea. If some of you know Pastor Dr. Trelfall. But it's a good research siguro for missions if you want to look at the percentage of churches. Pero marami na rin churches, Christian churches sa Korea. But no, South Korea specifically, North Korea for sure. Kasi na bawal talaga doon at papatayin ka na and all this. Pero I think there's still some na nakakalusot. So, yan. Okay, next. Confucianism, China versus Korea. So, the C there is power of emperor sa China, yung before. Then, there's power of aristocracy dun sa Korea. That's why I may K dyan. And then, culmination of currently cultures. Parehas na China, Korea, and Japan. Next slide. So with that Confucianism ideology, can someone read that quotation? Unmute yourself and then read that quotation about music na sinabi with regards to Confucianism. Go faster. Okay, here. Any volunteer? Para hindi lang kayo nagsasalita, para kayo ay at least participating. Ian, ikaw ba? Ay, hindi. Iba naman. Someone, sige, random. Yeah. Hindi ko kayo nakita sa screen pero so, kung ano lang yung first. Can you read that quotation?
To be a complete man, one has to rely on music.
Okay. So, do you agree with that? To be a complete man daw, one has to rely with music. Well, somehow we want, as siyempre meron tayong bias as musician. Pero, we know that ideology is not correct, di ba? We don't live for the music. Siyempre, alam natin yung doctrines natin and philosophy natin as a Christian. But that's the combination of music, yung sa philosophy, and then with the Confucianism belief. Okay? So, we go to the next. Yeah. So, for the general music background, I will just run through it kasi may specific naman tayo dyan na makita. The small ensembles are more of important siya is, hindi siya yung katulad ngayon, di ba, na we all this four harmony. It's all about yung melodic linear progression, individual interpretation. Hindi siya yung parang very, talaga with orchestra, with Western music. It's kind of an opposite thing. And then improvisation versus strict representation. So kind of you will be, as we go along with the Asian music thing, you will be exposed with different kinds of improvisation, especially sa India, Indonesia music. And it's heterophony. Hindi siya talaga isang isang line lang. And meron pang term na tinatawag na interlocking pa yung rhythms nila. It's not the one that we're used to here. Marami kang talagang maririnig na ibang elements. When it comes to dynamics, I think it's the next slide. Pitch system. Okay, very easy. Circle of fifths, the normal pentatonic. For those of you na hindi familiar din kasama our first year, 5 notes, diba, pentatonic, 5, or tritonic. Mostly tritonic sa Korea. But this is more of general music background as a whole din sa China and Japan. With dynamics, actually, siya, interesting dahil marami rin siyang changes or hindi mo very dramatic yung mga changes niya sa tempos, dynamics. You will hear very distinct changes na parang, oops, nangyari pala yun. Parang hindi mo napapansin na palang even sa rhythm. And you know, rhythm is very, diba, is one of the important elements sa music. And maririnig mo talaga siya. For Korea, distinct sa kanila yung triple meter, which is 6/8 and 9/8. Mamaya, if we have time, I can show you, but kung wala na, you will hear it naman dun sa mga listening examples na ipapakita ko sa inyo or sa playlist. So, you'll see na with the changes, it's more of yung talagang flow ng music. Parang you're being parang kang dinadala sa ibang dimension or lugar. Something like that. That's my kind of impression dun sa listening nung ginagawa ko yung playlist niyo. But some of them are still talaga ma-appreciate mo talaga yung beauty and the way the composers or even the musicians are doing yung musicianship nila. As in, grabe. If we go along dun sa next part niya sa Pansori, later on, I'll explain to you more of that. So that's the general music background. At least you have an idea. Ito yung nangyayari siya. So, okay. So we go to the real stuff that nag-start yung music ng Korea. So merong quartetto music. Act is literally yung, I'm not sure if that's the correct, pero yung ni-research ko, act or aak. Sa China, it's Yayue. And you will hear tomorrow sa lecture ni Miss Sarah, Gagaku, yung sa Japan. So these are called core teacher music ng Korea. So for Korea, specifically act. So that's yun yung nabasa niyo sa reading. It was passed down by the Chinese influence, cultural influence. So it goes back dun sa Goryeo dynasty pa, since sobrang start pa. That's why hanggang ngayon ginagawa pa rin nila ito. So with next slide lang, Miss Tara. It was a gift from China. Court music siya with may kasamang instruments yung gift. So it's mainly court music, ancestral. Ginagawa siya sa mga ancient shrines in Korea. It's kind of like an annual annual lang siya ginagawa tuwing birthday ni Confucius sa Korea. So it is done specifically sa isang lugar sa Korea, and they called it mumunyo. You will have that as a part of your playlist para mas maintindihan niyo siya. So I will try to not share, pero let's see if mape-play siya dito sa phone kasi nag-switch siya sa phone. But I will try to play the act. Kung maririnig nyo, let me know. Mag-comment kayo if hindi nyo marinig. Kasi nag-change ako ng gears dun sa play. So, Miss Sarah, sabihin mo sa akin kung maririnig yung audio. Okay. Just looking for the playlist ng act. Okay, ito na.
Wala
May
pa po.
naririnig ba kayo?
Wala pa.
Okay. Sige, I will remove yung ko. Meron.
Wala pa rin.
Wala.
Wala po.
Okay, sige. I will try to share screen. Siguro. Pwede mo akong dun sa co-host.
Okay. Wait lang.
Okay. Sige, while waiting, so, do you have any questions with regards to the first part? Wala naman. Clear naman tayo dun. Hindi kasi siya nag-play dun sa... Okay na. Okay, so let's try kung makikita niyo yung... Okay. Parang it will take some time, pero hindi siya agad magpapakita dito sa screen. Okay lang. Share screen mo na lang ulit, Sarah, yung slide. Okay na? Ayaw mo share?
Miss Regine, kayo po kasi yung host ngayon tapos naka-disable po yung screen share. Kaya po hindi na-share
Okay,
ko.
sige. Gagawin ko siya ulit, diba? Okay, make co-host. Ayan. Okay na. Okay na, Miss Sarah. Thank you, then. Ayan na. So, let's go to the next slide. So, court ceremonial music. So, tuloy-tuloy na lang yung slide ni Sarah kasi skip ko. So, again, it's yung Confucius shrine music for the sacrificial rites. Next. Okay, so basically, yung slide na yan, it talks about kung paano siya dumating dito. And then, again, yung nabanggit ko kanina, Johnson. And it's, yan, yung lugar kung saan siya piniperform. It's very serious. Dun sa video playlist, makikita niyo na how very, parang bawal kang gumalaw talaga. As in, very focused sila dun sa music. And meron lang certain instruments na ginagamit for that ritual music. Next. Okay, so sometimes meron siyang tinatawag, ang gumagawa dito sa orchestra na to or sa ritual music is more of yung ensemble. And then meron lang two pieces na nag-survive, which is mainly ginagamit pa rin ngayon. So, the link is there, pero wag na natin muna para magtuloy-tuloy na lang muna tayo sa lecture. Ayan. So, yeah, may picture pa rin naman makita niyo. So, that's the idea kung paano nila ginagawa yung ritual music na yan. So, mostly lalaki na play, pero I think meron pa rin namang babaeng musicians na gumagawa dyan. But mostly men, yung mga musicians after that. Okay. So, that's the Asian Korean music ng Korea. So, we go to the Korean folk song and vocal music. Korea has a very rich folk songs, different folk songs. And that's why meron talaga silang tawag doon. Minyo is called a Korean folk song. That's their parang Hangul name. Minyo. Japga is the miscellaneous songs, which is more of yung mga farmer songs, yung mga songs ng mga nangyayari sa daily life ng mga tao before. Yeah. So, and then we go to the next, and there's different definitions and development na nangyari sa Korean folk songs. So, we have yung Minyo, Yangto Minyo, Tongsok, Jontong, and then the Sin Minyo. Then we'll go to that deeper, kung ano ba yung ibig sabihin niya. So, we already do Minyo. It's called folk song, Korean folk song. Next is Yangto Minyo, which is the songs of the people, while Tongsok, songs for the people. So that's the difference between the two. Songs of the people, yung Yangto, and then Tongsok is songs for the people. So, ginagamit nila mostly ito sa mga celebration, it's not, pwede sa mainly sa daily work nila or lifestyle. Pero, of course, sa celebratory music, diba? Yung mga events before. Pero it's yung sa mga provinces. Next. And then, there's yung Jontong Minyo. And then, Sin Minyo, new folk songs. So, Sin Minyo, new folk songs, which is parang, ano na yan, contemporary folk songs. Na yung, yung tinutukoy. Then, yung mga folk songs kasi, remember how yung Korean War affected yung pag-retrieve. Pero when yung nung nakaka-revive na yung Korean government, they were able to revive and tried na ma-focus yung music culture or magkaroon na talaga na mas maayos yung sistema dun sa music nila, and they, uh, they did some reform. So iba-iba na yung nangyari with all the political happenings. Yung mga folk songs ay it talks also about dun sa mga ano nila, sa mga yung revolution or sa pakikibaka ng mga Korean people. So, yan. Meron 5 designated genres of folk songs, which is yung pabalik po ulit dun sa next, sa first, dun sa previous. Sensory, yan, sung by itinerant troops, which is yung nangyari dun sa Korean War. And then songs from the Northwest region, may mga migrants. So, you know how, di ba, syempre, alam natin that music is kind of a medium to express yung emotions ng tao. So, nagkaroon ng mga ganong differences. And then, Gyeonggi Mimi, which is from the central region. And then the other two, parang parehas lang siya, pero it's mostly sung by women. That folk song is mostly sung by women. Next slide. Yan. Thank you. So, and meron siyang kind of a dance, ano na rin, meron na siyang dance na incorporate. But now it's widely spread throughout sa western coastal ng Korea. Okay, next. So we go to the characteristics of Korean folk songs. Kanina we already had yung background kung ano ba yung general characteristic. But for the Korean folk song, syempre, this is more of vocal music, meron na siyang lyrics, di ba? Ano yung content ng isang Korean folk song? So I just summarize mostly, but I'll give you a handout more detail, pero syempre hindi naman masyadong maraming info kung ano lang talaga yung halaga. But the content is mostly, syempre, emotions of the people, deeply felt emotions, themes of yung about living a simple life. Kasi diba, yung mga provinces, they only do farming. Resignation, meron dyan. It's kind of, syempre, I think, hindi naman sila lang nakakaramdam. It's a general, nararamdaman. It's expression of love, compressed yet richly suggest. Ang maganda doon is parang they are very expressive when it comes to language. I think kahit ngayon sa kahit modern music din nila, may mga ganong, makita mo pa rin yung ganong effect. Kasi, hindi ko nakwento sa beginning, yung teacher ko dun sa Asian music sa UP before is a Korean, si Miss Hana O. Pero she died years ago because of cancer. Pero, yeah, she was mentioning this topic, yung expressions of love, and then the singing voice, mamaya doon sa Ponsori, yung narrative form, vocal form ng Korea. Yun talaga yung nagbibigay talaga ng drama because they have this different, parang distinct style. So, pero it gives you different feelings, like optimistic attitude. Hindi lang naman puro parang sadness or regret, hindi naman puro ganun. Kasi iba-iba naman yung themes niya. Then, I think next is form. So, it's basically parang yung meron tayo sa hymnal, di ba? Verse, refrain. And then, but the difference is sometimes sung by one person and then may sasagot. Parang meron siyang responsorial process. Merong isang kakanta and then merong response. And then there's repetitive patterns kasi may mga children's songs din for women. So, kung may marinig kayong ingay, umuulan na dito sa amin. So, I'll try. Let me know kung clear pa rin yung voice ko. And then, refrains though, commonly sung by workers. Kasi nga, yung mga folk songs na to is mostly from the farmers or yung mga nagtatrabaho talaga din sa, not just farmers, but nagtatrabaho sa mga province. And then, wording are flexible, pwede siyang i-improvise. It's not like very specific. And depende siya kasi dun sa kung sino yung kumakanta. Parang yun nga, nabanggit natin kanina yung isang characteristic is they can improvise. So, hindi sila parang stuck lang kung ano yung... That's why maraming versions ng Korean folk songs. Kasi nga, nandun yung variety. Next slide. Okay. So, sa melody, there's 5 types. Pero, you'll just go through it as it is. Kasi binigay ko naman dyan yung parang explanation. Can you it's different, meron siyang 5 types of melody kasi galing siya sa iba't ibang region ng Korea. So, may central folk song, which is Gyeonggi yung tawag dyan, pentatonic. Meron siyang distinct style for every folk song. So, for this style, sa Gyeonggi ninyo, it's cheerful, and it is the most popular stage folk song, which is they already visit sa entertainment. Because this is the most easiest regional folk song. Easy to sing. That's why, siyempre, kaya siya mas music. Mas nare-remind mo siya. Next. Namdo. Okay, this is very dramatic yung style nito. And then also, like pentatonic or tritonic, and the rhythm is set to, nalalagyan, we have three-tone meter sa southern folk song or yung sa general factor of music sa Korea. But it's set to a slower tempo. That's why, siyempre, kung slow siya, mas dramatic yung music. It's almost time, pero is anyone of you in my class can I take a 10-minute overtime? Okay lang ba? Sige. Walang sumasagot, so I think okay lang 10-minute overtime. So, I'll end ng 12:30. Okay, next slide. So, yeah, may 5 difference. I want to go to Arirang kasi that's the most known, best known folk song. Arirang is one of the versions or yung folk song talaga na known sa buong Korea. I'm not sure if some of you nakarinig na kayo ng Arirang. Pero for the sake of time, I already put it sa playlist. And I will have you listen to that one. Next slide po. Pa-move na doon sa Arirang. Sa baba na siya. Baba na siya ng number. Yan. So, yan. Best known Korean folk song. And again, merong versions every region ng Arirang. And it's not nonsensical yung word na Arirang. Kasi part siya ng lyrics, Arirang. Ganun yung parang, niya. And then parang meron siyang play of words. And then meron na rin mga Korean lyrics. Pero, yun yung maririnig mo talaga. That's, I think, it's very famous. That's why, sa YouTube, merong, if you are familiar with Arirang channel ng Korea, diba? If you have cables, meron, pinangalan nila itself, Arirang. Kasi parang it's very famous sa Korea. Next. And there's 4 versions na sikat, pero meron akong asterisk dyan kasi according to my teacher before, kasi namin yung Kyonggi and Shingo. Pero, there's like around 30 more than 13 na arilang versions. With the supplementary that I will give you, may kasamang music doon, and you will notice how marami talaga silang improvisation with the voice. Hindi ko lang siya mapapakinig ngayon because of the time and yung technical difficulty. Itong Jeju Minyo, hindi ko na siya, it's something specific dun sa Jeju Island, na very famous na lugar sa Korea. So, it's not, parehas din siya with the folk song. Pero it has a distinct, with sa handout, makita niyo naman dun yung explanation. But I will not dwell on that sa exam, or I just want you to know, there's a Jeju Island folk song din pala. And then we go to the next. This is a Japda. So, this is a miscellaneous songs lang. So, I want to skip and go to Pansori. Kasi isa yun sa pinakamahalaga din na part ng music ng Korea. So, Pansori is a narrative form, narrative vocal music. Yan. So, stop there. You will see na dalawa lang performers. Merong singer and there's ang nakampane na drum, lalaki usually. Usually babae yung singer for the Pansori. Okay, next slide. And it's a long narrative storytelling, pero vocal, meron siyang tono. So, Korean narrative song form. Parang siyang aria, sa Western music, diba? So, for those of you who sings, recitative, sorry, yun yung isa doon. Parang recitative form, pero it's a Korean song form. So, Pan means place where many people gather and song. So, solo singer and then one accompanies lang, drum. So, these two work together, pero yung accompaniment, of course, supporting the singer kung ano yung kailangan niya. So, dapat talagang sila. Meron talaga sila dapat connection in a sense to the flow. Pero yung hook o yung drum, yun yung tawag doon sa drum. Yun yung nagbibigay din ng interesting feeling or drama dun kasi pwede niya i-change yung speed, pero yung improvisation niya nakalilay pa rin sa singer. Next slide. Okay, so very rich vocal. If you will listen to the recording, you will notice yung depth talaga. Kasi parang it's a different kind of vocal timbre, which I don't think Sir EJ will ask you to do that. So, sa mga nag-vocal, voice students, and even sa choir pa, this is kind of an opposite way of singing na pinapagawa sa atin. Because, parang throat, glottal, kakaiba yung niya. And wide range siya. Hindi siya yung parang lang. That's why nung pinapanood ko yung recording and I was reviewing it, amazing, nakaka-amaze talaga yung kumakanta. And mostly kumakanta rin nito dun sa recording, matatanda na. So imagine how they maintain na hindi nasira yung boses nila. Kasi diba, remember, we know sa vocal structure na there's a right way of singing. Pero dito, we have this style na I'm not sure kung paano nila na-maintain yung voice nila. So, there are different degrees and kinds of vibrato. Merong slow vibrato or wide, slow, fast vibrato. Marami siyang texture talaga. And tense, that's yung vibrato na yun, nagbibigay sa kanya ng intensity and expressions. That para sa the story. Kasi yung story ng Pansori is a narrative which is mahaba siya and it will be boring, diba? Siyempre, kapag talagang isang texture lang ibibigay mo. Which is, ang instrument ko lang na ginagamit is the voice and the drum. So, kailangan mong mag-improvise, maging creative. But still, based on modal system, nakalagay dyan. The improvisation though is not very much, pero meron pa rin nangyayaring improvisation. Siyempre, mahaba siya. Hindi siya pwedeng lahat improvisation. So, yeah. So, it's basically one of the most traditional vocal form of music ng Korea. And until now, it's still done. Pero ngayon, meron na siyang mga differences. So, the next slide. Sorry, pumuputok. Okay, baka kasi tumatama. Okay na, meron na, medyo clear na to. Let me know kung medyo, yung sound irritating. So, it has evolved now to, ano yun? It has evolved through time. Thank you for the chat. Sige, nabasa ko naman. So, contemporary siya before. It's outdoor, pero ngayon naging indoor na siya. Pero meron pa rin mga performances. But the thing now, dahil na siya, contemporary na siya, the singer is having a hard time doing yung kanyang part because malaki na siya eh. Siyempre, yung voice mo has to project. And then also there's an evolution then in terms of the audience. Kasi yung audience din dito is kasama sa performance. Before, the audience are very active in a way na nag-react sila kasi parang it's a form of their appreciation. Kahit na may nagpo-perform sa harap, parang they would react or do some gestures or sound. Pero okay lang yon. Hindi yung parang kakabastos na pag mo lang, pag-react. But right now, with a different audience, meron pa rin. With a different audience, iba na yung nila. Iba na yung nangyayari. Okay. Next slide. Okay na yan sa audience. So, yan. Okay. So, we go to the Korean traditional music. This is, yung samonori is quartet of instruments. It's not an instrument, pero samonori means four objects or four objects to play. Pero yung ginagamit ng mga instruments is the traditional Korean instruments. And you will have that in your playlist. I would suggest, I will send right away the playlist to you para mapakinggan nyo na right after so that I will make sense with this. And if you have questions, and then, minsan ako show kahit saglit lang. 1 minute na lang kasi alam ko, naririnig niyo yung ulan dito sa bahay namin. Maulan na siya sa labas, malakas ang ulan. So, yung traditional instruments, yung dalawa kung sinasaya na slide. Pero kung hindi naman, okay lang. It will be in the Google Classroom pa rin. Ayan. Okay. So, if you download it, pag binigay ko sa inyo yan, I have comments and explanations with that. So, they have bowed instruments, zither-like, parang katulad din nung sa Japan, yung koto, which we will be introduced to that. Meron din sila parang style ng erhu sa China. Then struck instruments like yung hammered, meron din diba yung pinakita ni Sir B. And then yung percussion, sige, stop. Yan, ito yung parang most, sa samonori, ito yung parang isa sa mga ginagamit. I tried playing the jango before sa UP, may jango ang UP. And sobrang lakas niya as a drum, parang hourglass siya. And it, para siyang, when you play it, parang feeling mo may sumasabog. Pero maganda yung projection ng sound niya. And it's one of the mainly used instrument. And then some of that, ito, yung isa dyan, yung han, yung parang bilog. It mainly came from China. Parang siyang flute, may butas siya, gawa siya sa clay. So, yan yung isa sa mga instruments na galing sa China and it kind of developed nung napunta na sa Korea. Yan. So all of that merong nasa playlist, and all of that I want you to listen to it. You don't have to listen to it as a whole, sa whole clip. Siyempre may part na medyo different sa tenga natin, hindi natin lahat ma-appreciate. Pero some of them, merong mga explanations on how to play, which is very interesting. You have to really note that when you do listening with the playlist of China, sa Korea, Tibet, and Bisara Grace, Japan, sa bukas. So, you are, tapos tayo. You're required to at least do an hour of listening per country. So, hindi nyo kailangan pakinggan lahat kasi I gave my listening playlist as a whole na more than an hour yon. Pero you're just required to at least do an hour of listening para do sa listening review. Thank you for staying. Any questions? Sorry, thank you for bearing with the struggle of computer and the internet. Any questions? Clarifications?
Abang na lang tayo kung anong announcement bukas. Pero hopefully, we can still continue our lesson for tomorrow.
So, if you have questions with the Korean music thing, I will give you more supplemental handouts. It will be uploaded sa Google Classroom, lahat ng sa slides. Don't worry about it. I will give you that. And then the listening for today will be posted. I send the link to use sa Google Classroom. So, pakinggan nyo siya, guys. So, thank you and stay safe and see you tomorrow. And wait for the announcement. Bye. Sana nag-attendance ka naman. Thank you. Bye.